Hello, everyone. But I'm giving a special shout out. Russ, first in the chat. Nick's are the best. Pete's are the worst. I disagree with that. My brother agrees with that. So I don't necessarily like either of you at this point. Tim Wolf, very happy to see you here. Someone I do like and enjoy. Um, I wanted to say thank you, everyone, for joining. It is the special Thanksgiving episode. I am thankful for everyone that's joined me so far, everyone in the chat, and I am very thankful for my guest tonight. I started following him, I think, on social media maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I saw the cover of his book, which drew me in. And then we exchanged a couple emails before he sent me one of the arcs to read. And I wouldn't have expected that through just those couple of emails where it was like friendly banter, getting to know you a little bit, that all this time later, we're in the same group together. I have read all his books. I am thoroughly enjoying this journey that he is putting all of us on. So I am very happy that he's here tonight. Without further ado, Mr. Nick Betts.
What's up, y'all? What's going on, brother?
How are you doing today, sir?
Just lovely, man. Like I said, just trying to stay out of the cold up here, way up north. So nothing too weird and wonderful, brother. Just living.
You were telling me backstage, and the reason we are a minute late is because we are just friends at this point where we didn't even need to we could have just recorded it back there and then posted it. But what was the temperature this morning for you, for everyone else to just know?
Well, for us Canadians, it was minus 16. So I don't know what that is converted to American Fahrenheit, but it is cold. Very, very cold. Yeah. So the still haven't put on the winter coat yet. The hat and gloves are on, but don't like to put the winter coat on too early because eventually it's going to hit minus 60 overnight, and I won't know what to do with myself. To be honest, like when I first came out to Edmonton, I think this was 5 years ago now. I didn't even have a block heater in my car because we didn't even need one back home in Nova Scotia. And I had to put one in because, I didn't even realize until the first winter, Kathleen, my wife, and I were out here that, overnight she hit minus 60.
Fuck
and it
that.
was, yeah. And so anyway, I was like, okay, well, if it's that cold here, I was like, I couldn't imagine like all the way up north, like the people in the tundra and Yellowknife and all that. Oh, couldn't even imagine it, man. But
the first question of the chat: have you not put your winter coat on yet because it's frozen?
I don't know. It could be. It's been down in the basement since last year.
Ooh,
but
you're gonna need a new one.
Well, I mean, who knows, right? Like it goes down there with the rest of the things that are forgotten. Oh, 3 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, well, I mean, I guess that's positive in some respect, I suppose. It's above
I think
zero.
on the grand scale of life, though, I believe they refer to that as fucking freezing.
Yeah, or it's just generally stupid. Like it's stupid outside. Like that's the easiest way to put it. And that's Edmonton from about mid-October until probably April. I'd say early April. That's when it starts to break a little bit. We had a long spring, but we come out of a long winter too, right?
So, yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Well, there's one thing that you can always look forward to, and I'm very happy to bring this up after last night. Those Panthers are on fire. I'm gonna get that insult in before you pivot to where I'm at.
We were on fire last week, but this was our week to cool off a little bit. I'm not going to make any comments because I mean, like, there's only so much you can do when you pick the ball off 3 times and you only scored 9 points in a game. That's just me. I think we did better in my youth football league way back when 10 feet, 200 pounds ago. We would have put up more points than that, but no, she, as we would say, the arse came out of her, and that was about it. That was about it, man. I don't know. Like they definitely weren't the cardiac cats they were last night, but that's more because they scared you more than anything. That was about it.
Can I ask, as a gentleman from Edmonton, how you picked the Panthers to be your team? I was born into misery through generations of hardships, but what got you in there?
All right, I'm gonna fact check this one here right quick. I am a very humble small town fella from a place called Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. And for the people watching, the only namesake that my town has to a map anywhere is Sidney Crosby. So
Mm.
for hockey fans, you'll know Sidney Crosby because he's dummied the American teams in multiple international competitions many times. If you don't know Sydney, Nathan McKinnon's also from Cole Harbour. And to be honest with you, outside of the Trailer Park Boys, that's about it. That's all. That's all. Like that's all where I come from, Cole Harbour, Dartmouth. That's our claim to fame. Now, the Carolina Panthers. To be honest with you, I think it was Super Bowl 40 when they played the Patriots and we lost to that Adam Vinatieri kick right at the end of the game.
Mm.
My dad had gone out that night, and anyway, I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? I've never watched football before, so I flipped on the TV, and it was, what do you like better? Do the Panthers have better uniforms, or do the Patriots have better uniforms? And well, I like to look at that electric blue and black and white combination. It's so sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I said, you know what? That's going to be my team. I did
I
that with,
respect that.
yeah, and that's ultimately what it was, man. And you know what? I stuck with it through the like it wasn't too rough during the Jake Delhomme, Steve Smith years. Those were pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Did suffer a bit during the Jimmy Clausen experiment, but I mean, who did? Who didn't? And then after that, we were absolutely blessed with many years of Cam Newton until he took that shot from T.J. Watt in a mid-season game, and that was basically it, man. Like after that, it was just the revolving door, and I wish we which call it? I wish we had of well, I wish Cam hadn't have took that shot, and I wish we had a stuck with Baker Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, unfortunately, we were in a bad spot, and Matt Rule was just a bad coach for the team. And then we get into yeah, I miss him too. I miss Super Cam big time. The Daps, man, like I'd love turning it on. That 2015 season where we went to the Super Bowl against Denver that we had to lose because of the script because it was Peyton's last season.
Yes.
Right? Like it
Mm-hmm.
just, I mean, I suffered that night. It was what it was. And I mean, it was just like, I won't shy away though. It was an amazing season of football to watch that year. Like just Cam, we had the defense was Thieves Avenue. Like it was just, man, it was so good. And we haven't been back since. I know
Mm-hmm.
the Bryce Young experiment's been it's been bad the first 2 years. He showed some promise last season. This year's been better. So I mean, they seem like they're doing okay under Dave Canales. I haven't watched a ton of Panthers football. Only watched a smidgen of it last night. But yeah, I mean we're doing okay. To be honest with you, I think we've won 5 games up to this point. So like that's more than the 4 I thought we were going to win at the start of the season. So I really can't complain. I
Yeah,
really
yeah. I
can't.
think you guys may have turned the corner. Hopefully, at least. So.
Yeah. I mean, we've got some studs. Like I felt bad when we had to trade away McCaffrey. That was a big blow, and that was now a horrible trade looking back at it. And then, I mean, he wanted too much money, but we couldn't keep Brian Burns either. He went to the Giants. But I mean, we've got like J.C. Horns back there, who's electric when he's not hurt. And Derek Brown's an absolute beast in the trenches. So apparently, we just lost Trayvon Merrick for a game though. Apparently, he cracked somebody in the gear yesterday, so
Yeah,
he got
so
a
that
game suspension. Right, I didn't see that myself, but I was like, I
yeah,
saw that this morning when I woke up. I was like,
a
my
nice little
Jesus,
uppercut.
oh buddy, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Burns has been awesome on the Giants. Stuff you hate to see,
Yeah, exactly.
but I mean,
Uh,
they got him there with oh, what was that kid they drafted just a couple years ago? Kayvon
uh,
Thibodeau.
yeah, Thibodeau's there, and then they got someone on the draft this year who I can't remember who wanted Lawrence Taylor's number and only has a half a sack this year so far.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm blanking on his name. His highlight was getting wrecked by a Jets tight end in the preseason
jeez,
and a
eh?
chip block, which shows how good he's doing. But
Oh, just get yeah, absolutely torched. But I mean, it's cool. Like then you look at other stuff. Like I'll give a shout out to Matty Zorich, who diehard Cleveland Browns fan, and yeah, I know, yeah, Derek Brown, totally. And then like the diehard Brown stuff, and then I mean Myles Garrett's only I think 5 sacks away from the single season record, and he's got 6 games to go. Like that's super cool.
Yeah,
So
I hope he
that's a
gets that.
that's a bright spot. I mean, it'll just be a matter of if he sets it, will he want to leave Cleveland? But I mean, at the same time, then you also ask the question, who wouldn't?
Yeah, exactly.
Like as a Panthers fan and a Jets fan and whoever else is in the chat that hasn't won a Super Bowl in many, many, many years, I don't think any of us want to play for the Browns. But
No, if I'm gonna
that's just
suck,
me.
at least I'm gonna suck in New York City.
Yeah, 100%.
Sorry,
Right,
sorry, wherever you are.
and especially like playing that close to the Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, and never getting in there. That'd be a
No,
rough
you
one.
just blow kisses to it on the highway to the stadium.
Yeah, or you ask for a trade up the road to Cincinnati. That'd be about
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Long as you're not a quarterback, and then you're good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be behind that O line.
No,
Just me.
no.
But anyway, I think we should get to why we're here today. The New
I am
York
going to
Jets.
pivot because I was going to say, speaking of things that do not suck, was going to be my seg. I am going into, actually, I'm going to show off because I have it right here, like the way that I mentioned. The cover drew me in. This is the cover, the original cover, which I just want to jump in here because this is already great. I loved this. Really, really loved this. And I'm going to share the updated cover, which the series will be continuing with now. And yeah, you're holding it up too. And honestly, as far as glow ups go, wow, that is stunning. The new covers. Before, actually, I want to kind of jump into it as well. Sorry, I popped us up right there. Can you give a little bit of backstory on the story so far, just for book one? And then I'm going to take it from there. But just for anyone who's not as familiar with the series, just give a little bit of a brief recap.
Cool. So let's start off with something funny because I do this at my markets as a way to break the ice. So I was talking about it in our Willow Wraith press chat the other day. I usually pitch my series in 4 tiers. So just to acquaint everybody with it, and then I'll kind of go through the sequential events and the Waking of Storm and Flame. So very first is what I call my bad pitch. So basically just something meant to break the ice, something easy and very, very simple. You've read it, you'll know it. Princess with shiny rocks tries to save the world. Simple as it gets, right?
Yeah.
And then, so very, very basic layer, like the bare bones. Princess joins Royal Army to take on Big Bad Empire. Simple as the story gets. Now, about 1,000 years before, and this is kind of that second layer, about 1,000 years before the story began, we had an event called the Cataclysm. And the Cataclysm was basically a war between 10 gods that were left behind by their creator, Zion, who we'll get to in the next level. But basically, they used humanity as their pawns, divided them in half, and started this war. This war unfolded. The sky rained rocks from space. It was amazing. And then all of a sudden, the gods took off and disappeared. Well, humanity went on and did what they did, quarreled amongst themselves. And 1,000 years later, the Empire's fighting the Royal Army, and all of a sudden, these gods are starting to wake back up again. Now we come to the overarching thing and the big theme of the entire 5-book pentology, which is millennia before this story even started. The creator Zion came to Idel, and his first job was to create 10 gods and basically put humans into a state of dormancy. They were created. I borrowed some of that mythos from the way the dwarves were created in Lord of the Rings, where they were kind of just set underground and then they came out on their own. Although none of the humans that first evolved looked into a lake and realized they were king. Nobody did that one. But basically what ended up happening was Zion gave them 10 gifts. So 5 of them were given gifts over the elements. They were each given something like hope, courage, all those things that we naturally embody as humans. Now, before Zion bestowed the last gift, he told his shepherds of humanity, all 10 of them, basically, I'm going to return someday. I don't know when. The universe is a very big place, and you are not the only ones. Now, when I come back, I want to see two things. I want to see you unified, and I want to see you prosperous. And that's how I want you to shepherd humanity as you kind of go forth. Now, that came with a crux and a condition that if he came back and the gods and the humans were judged as wanting and they broke from his unity or they weren't prosperous, that he would wipe everything out and they would start again. So that would be an event that would come to be known as the final judgment. Now, there are signs starting to creep up in the early parts of this story that Zion is coming back. So before the eve of battle between the royal army of Enel and the Illyrian Empire, basically brother Kale, and we set into motion a destiny that she never expected to be a part of. Now, what happens, and spoiler alert for anybody that's hasn't read the book yet, but I'll try and gloss over it so I don't give too much. The Royal Army of Enel doesn't get their butts kicked once, but twice. Alira faces execution. Her sister Zara goes looking for her, but is held back, realizing she's been betrayed by someone who's very close to her. Alira is saved by an old friend who's ultimately carrying out the will of her brother and trying to set into motion the unification of these southern kingdoms. So Alira goes to places she doesn't want to go, as does Zara in her pursuit of looking for her sister on the old battlefield, only not to find her. And then they even go into the vanguard realm of Illyria, Asea, in an attempt to rescue Alira, finding out that everyone she was captured with was executed, but Alira is nowhere to be found. So that's where we enter my absolutely favorite character, and I will probably name her 100 times in this episode, Rinley Tillett, my spunky, quirky little archer who's got a bit of a mean streak but has the demeanor of a golden retriever puppy. Now, what unfolds from there, we discover that what's happened with Zara, with something in her past, basically triggers a shadow to come through her. It gives her extra abilities on the battlefield, helps her fight quicker, stronger, faster. But it ends up taking over Zara in a weak moment and shows itself when Alira and Emil, the king of the reunited kingdom of Talier, sail back to Enel to retake their home of Namel. And basically Zara's fight with the person that she loved and had a relationship with, well, they duke it out, but they're not the only ones present, because all of these shadows that have been pulling the strings behind the Illyrian Empire and their massive expansion in the south, well, they show up too. The demon known as Kalos, and then we have the re-arrival of Samara, who plays a very pivotal role in the entire series. And I can say that because I'm halfway through book 5 right now in writing it. And they retake the kingdom, although I'm not going to get into kind of what happens or where people go, but it ends up with Alira setting sail onto the northern realm and the northern continent of Radia to try and stir up a new group of allies for what will be a renewed push against the Empire, effectively trying to bring them to heel, which is what ultimately the Empire is doing to the southern kingdoms. But Radia has been forgotten for hundreds of years, and they'll be the first Southerners to really go there. And that's where we pick up in The Last Cry of Innocence, which is still the title I'm most proud of.
I love that title. Again, I'm going to share the cover again. The cover remains absolutely sick. I have the original one here, which is also sick. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask going into it, and I'm going to pick back up with, the background that you just gave. What made you want to pivot and get new cover designs? Because I think you made a very good decision especially doing it this early in the series where, you know, you don't have all five of the originals out and then go, oh crap, like let me redo this. So what
Yeah.
made you want to do that though?
So the big thing was, to be honest with you, I always wanted artsy covers. I just didn't know how to go about it. I mean, of course, the beauty of the self-publishing game is learning so much. But I really just wanted art, and I wanted to put something on the cover I was proud of. Now, the originals, I was very proud of. Those were both of, I didn't do them, but they were both of my machinations and my designs. So I was very proud of them, and they were really eye catching, which is what I wanted them to be. And they were the basis, and you see them the way the series is going. I wanted them to be reflective of the fate in their element, with a massive color pop, so they would really stand out. Now the new ones are a little bit more washed out, but I do like the stained glass effect that they have. Like I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Um, and once it's done, I am looking into trying to get the art done like stained glass, so I can put it up behind me.
Oh, that'd be
Um,
awesome.
yeah. But it was when I was actually paying attention to Instagram one of the days I wasn't just mindlessly scrolling. And I came across another artist cover, Tavia Jackson, TC Jackson. And anyway, she had I asked her, I said, okay, like your cover's gorgeous. Like that's what I envisioned for my series. Um, who did it? And come to find out, it was a an artist named Jan Ignacio, who is down in the Philippines. You can find, if anybody's interested in seeing their stuff. There's tons of tags in my Instagram feed with pictures of these covers. I try to tag them every time I put something up. But really, it's just I wanted to redo it before I got too far along.
Mhm.
And I was at the tipping point. So I had done the first two, and the third was coming, and I had said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, it's going to be now. And the one big reason why I wanted to switch things up was mainly just to get the true look of the characters that I wanted. So I tried, and with that original TLCOI cover, I tried everywhere to find like a Polynesian pirate woman. And I, for the life of me, could not. And that's unfortunate. That's just a limitation of stock photography. So when I went back to JN and I had said, okay, like this is how I want Tiora to look. I want, and the basically what I told him was picture Moana, but Jack Sparrow.
Yeah,
And
nailed
that's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Now I will say yeah, so where her armor and her dress, like her leathers and whatnot, that's how I described her in the book. So that's how I wanted Tiora to look. Um, and basically just he brought that vision to life. Um, Now it's funny, like not everything I didn't want to rein in any creative freedom with the design. So it was basically just, yep, here's how I want it to look. Here's like the look of the armor, like a blue lace dress covering the whole body. Um, it was important for me to have it kind of cut off at shorts as well, and to be a little bit open, because the Tytopian environment that she's a part of is warm and humid, and well, it wouldn't be conducive to plated armor and pants, especially for a sailor. So it was just, that was the big driving force, was just to um, try and get my characters to look how they wanted. Now, when we go back to like and switch back to the first one right here, you can see from the original cover that you held up earlier, you can see the homage that's paid to the original look, which I like. JN did that on their own. I was perfectly fine with that, but it still captures the initial essence of Alira, which I look back at it and I thought, you know what? I was like, I'm pretty proud of that, because that, even though it wasn't an artsy cover, that was where I started.
Hmm.
So it was cool to like keep that original pose. The other thing that kind of, and it was the trigger that made me want to change the Waking of Storm and Flame, especially, was because when I wanted the elemental motif for each book, well, the original cover had more flame on it than storm. And now, funny enough, if I had had my time back, would I have made Alira the Fate of Flame? Now, I've thought about that 100 million times. I was like, okay, but how many heroes do we have that wield fire? Like that just seems to be the go-to. So I was like, no, like I want to open up with this with wind, which is what it started with and how it's developed into the gale and tempest, and eventually later on as people will see storm and lightning and all of those other facets. So it's ultimately gaining levels as she goes through this series without it being a progression fantasy. Um, Now, I basically just wanted to capture that element of storm, and that's what JN did perfectly with that new cover. Like, it's not overdone. You see her hair's kind of blown back with the wind. There's clouds. There's lightning. Um, it was just perfect, and that's where I had to reserve the flame motif for my book that comes out tomorrow, "The Serpent and the Shattered Sword." So that was just one of the many reasons why I switched up, was just to make sure that everything was solid, everything was concrete, cohesive, and it had the look that I wanted. I want to shout out Marie, because Marie, it was one of my beta readers. That's Woodsy Reading on Instagram. And Marie put into a picture what I get to look at my market, or what I got to look at my markets over the weekend. And that is all three covers side by side. And it's like, I'll admit, I have goal line fever. Book 4 is written. Book 5 is like, I think 197 pages in as of today. I am full speed ahead trying to get this thing done, because my ultimate goal and my pat on the back is basically just to see all 5 covers lined up next to each other at the end of all this, right? And it's going to be super cool, because I don't have the 4th cover yet, or the 5th for that matter. But this is a Nick pipe dream here. But I want to be able to have them so that they're in kind of a circle, and then that way Alira faces the left side of the book, and then at the very, very end will be Zara, and Zara will face Alira. So something super cool. I can't wait to see all 5 of them next to each other. I'm so excited. Like,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's also going to be a very cool way to close the circle of this series and everything. That's kind of some perfect imagery to go along with it. So
yeah.
hearing that is very cool. I have to ask, because I've always been curious about it. What made you want to do 5 books right off the bat? Like, you so often it's either like a standalone or a trilogy we see all the time. And I remember when we were talking, and I think even you said you were just like, yeah, I'm starting on book 4 now. I was like, book fucking 4? And then you're like, well, yeah, there's one after it too. And I was like, hell yeah, like awesome. It's very very cool to see, especially since this is kind of your, I want to even say it's past dipping the toe into writing. You're like half your body's in at this point with a 5-book series. But what was the kind of influence on you that made you want to go this big, this epic, this immediate?
Well, the simple answer is naivety. Straight up, man. I think I want to shout out Bill, because I think Bill put it this way when we had talked in Smudging back in May. And Bill had said the beauty of like this self-publishing thing is that when everybody starts, especially with your debut, none of us have a sweet clue what we're doing. Now that's what I got into, and I didn't realize the initial scope of this story when I first got into it. So I had imagined it at 3 books, and I had said, well, I can do it, but I don't think it's going to have the impact I want, and the scope doesn't make sense for how it's going to end. So I initially played around with it with 4, and the linchpin that made my decision between book 4 and like a 4-book series and a 5-book series was this right here that comes out tomorrow. So this is a trip to Evan Glacia, which is ultimately the lost foreboding continent. I could have left them as an outside player, but the more I dug into it as I was planning the pentology proper, I had said, you know what, like if I take a third book and I introduce the power behind Evan Glacia and I lay bare basically some of the secrets of the series, um, will it be rushed if I ended at 4 books? And so I had thought about it and I had loosely planned ahead for the Call of the Silver Spire, which is book 4. And I had just kind of gone through it and I was like, okay, I could end it at 4 if I really wanted to. I was like, but that would be an absolute chunk monster of a book. And so, just to make it digestible, I mean, most of my books sit around the 400 to 500 page limit, or not limit, but 400 to 500 page threshold anyway. QSAF is 397. The Last Cry is 507. It's the biggest one. The Waking of Storm and Flame is 450, or sorry, the Serpent of the Shattered Sword is 450. Book 4 that's currently sitting and marinating in my hard drive is right now 470, and I haven't done my edition edits where I pump in all my extra emotion and description and just make sure everything's in there that I want to be before I start killing my darlings. And then book 5 right now it was a planned 20 chapters, but we're going to go beyond that because the characters tell their own story. And I had some chapters that were bigger that I'm starting to split up a little bit. But yeah, I'm just about to cross that 200 page threshold. And now I'm kind of debating with myself. I'm like, well, I'm supposed to start editing the book 4 in 20 days. And I was like, I might just keep writing book 5 and push 4 back a little bit. Only because right now the words are coming. Like there's no writer's block. There's nothing. I find my draft zeros are easy and I write very quickly only because I treat it as a proper brain dump. I just write what's in my head and the way it comes on paper, and I can pretty it up and polish it and trim up what I need to in the editing process. So really it just came down to how long did I think it needed to take. I tend to, in my own life, hang on to things a lot longer than I should. And I think that is ultimately one of the driving forces behind why the series is 5 books rather than 4, is just to buy myself more time with these characters because they've been in my head for, well, when the series wraps up, probably 7 or 8 years. And like, I think as I write and I tiptoe closer to the finish line, I just think that, like, I am I ready to let them go? No. Do I think I'm ever going to be? Probably not. But what kind of keeps me going is at the end of this, I've kind of got, and this is something special for me, is I want to get a painting commissioned, just something simple. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I want it to be like a back on image or even a front on image of me sitting at the computer writing and all 5 of my fates like kind of in behind, like acting like themselves. And that's just something nice, just a little ode to a trilogy that's special for more than just words on a page. Like the first one speaks to my first couple years in the military. It's got my deceased cat in it. So anybody that's listened to me tell that story about Ace many times, and how my first 40 pages of The Waking of Storm and Flame and the initial plotting were basically just a way to, one, port my laptop around the house and follow my cat to make sure he didn't get confused or fall down the stairs or anything like that. He was in final stage kidney failure, so really it was a bit of a process. And after he passed, which was Valentine's Day of 2022, I didn't pick up that book for another year and a half. So it's just one of those, like, I have such things that are such like important things to me that are poured into it. Like it's not just a story, especially when I try to relate it to a lot of people, that The Waking of Storm and Flame is my first couple years in the military, and it's centered on ultimately Alira's journey and what happens when you know the reasons you signed up for serve, but what happens when you find yourself in a place you don't fit. And it's a big allusion to, again, those first, probably the hardest 2.5 years of my life. um, I mean, after that, I went on to have a great 10 years of a different trade in the military after that. Just got out a couple years ago. But there's a lot of parts and pieces of me and my life that get or that were injected into that story and have bled all the way through. Like when I do certain things to these characters, we all laugh and joke all the time about, oh, how can we make their lives more miserable? Um, as somebody who kind of writes in the like the classic trope and especially the noble bright side of it, or at least what I consider to be noble bright. Every time I've got to do something bad to the characters, like I feel bad myself. I'm like, I don't want to hurt my little family here that lives in my head. So anyway, it's just which calls a long roundabout way to just say five just felt right,
Mhm.
more or less. Yeah.
Yeah, which is perfect. It's I'm very glad that you didn't compromise your vision and the emotions and feelings that went into each story just to be like, well, may four may sell better, or just kind of like being true to yourself and keeping it as much as you wanted. So, that was a perfect answer, and I'm very happy to hear that specific answer, which is cool. One of the other things I wanted to ask is, because this was the first kind of epic fantasy I jumped back into after a while. I was doing a lot of grimdark, a lot of very, kind of morally gray type of stories and everything like that. And this series is firmly in the, like you said, the noble dark, the epic fantasy aspect of the genre. But how do you take something that has been around for a while? You already mentioned Lord of the Rings was a giant influence on this, but the story as I'm reading it feels unique. So how do you go about having those influences where people will be like, oh, this is my favorite story of all time, and you use it as an influence, but also put your own personal twist on it to get us just as invested as characters as they did uh, 80 years ago writing those stories?
Yeah, and to be honest, like I've even searched for that answer, and all I've come up with is I don't know. It's just they. I say they as in people I've listened to podcasts, other people talking, and that there seems to be this thing that exists in the world that every story has already been told. It's just now we're telling them in different ways. Now, what I see with this is that I don't know if I'm breaking. Other people have seen different things, but I don't think I'm breaking any new ground. Nor did I want to. I wanted to tell a true classic heroic story, good versus evil. Though in mine, I think that one of the things I do leverage, especially as you go through the series and you get to see more of Illyria's journey, and then the strings and the things that not only Illyria fights for, but also Evan Glacia in this new book that I've got coming. And to find out how everything weaves together, and it's really leveraging and asking the question of what is good and what is evil, what is right, like who is right and who is wrong. And at the end of this, I want people who've been invested in the series to look at it and go, you know, I can kind of sympathize with the other side, and I might have actually gone with their way of thinking rather than the way that I'm trying to take you. So I try to leverage a lot of the old stuff, and I believe it was Herodotus way back in like Greek mythology that gave us the line "History is written by the victor," and we get into that a lot when we talk about like unreliable narrators and things like that. But really, it's old stories in my voice is what it is, and I wasn't worried about trying to be like the newest kid on the block or anything like that. I wanted to tell my story, and where the fates of Aten actually roots itself is in my childhood. And my biggest influence, funny enough, and nobody like nobody has ever guessed it, or at least they've never brought it forward to me. My biggest influence for five fates, mixed genders, and a powerful fighting force was the Power Rangers.
Hmm.
Like that is the fates of Auden ultimately are my Power Rangers from the first time I would have watched it as a young kid and got in trouble by my mom for watching fighting stuff at like 5 and 6 years old. But it's just it's that special stuff, and it's just trying to take those things. Like if you dilute the fates of Auden down, you're going to find the gods and the demons. You're going to find light and dark. You'll find elemental magic, sword wielding heroes, reluctant heroes. You'll find the hero's journey, personal growth, betrayal, alliances. And the one thing I like to think that I bring to it is a little bit of injection of my own mental health journey and how that kind of weaves its way through alliance and friendship and betrayal in terms of what I've felt. And I mean, we can call it trauma dumping to some aspect because we'll say the under antagonist, Rygar in book one, Rygar is actually based on how I said my first couple years in the military were horrible. It was a leader who was supposed to look out for me as a subordinate, but was one of the first people to throw me under the bus. And not only throw me under the bus, but drive over me and back up and drive over me again and repeatedly until I finally achieved escape velocity out of that tornado and shot off to better places. But really, it's telling those old stories just in my words with my influences. And I mean, really, it's everything I've seen and everything I've been through. I don't now the one thing about me, and I don't shy away from this. I also don't um, recommend a lot of books on my social medias because I read like molasses on a cold day in Edmonton. I always have, and I like the same media that I've always gone to. I love my Final Fantasies. I love my Resident Evil, Mass Effect. I love my old stories I read when I was a kid, and all my old TV shows and all my old movies. And that's where a lot of my influences come from. So especially when a lot of people talk about um, like where do your influences come from in literature? Well, outside of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, which I've been very invested in, I don't really have a lot of literature based influences only because I always shied away from reading.
Hmm.
Just because I always read slow, I'd get 10 pages in and get discouraged because I'd keep going back and I'm like, oh, maybe did I miss something? Did I read it differently? Like this, that, and the other. So a lot of my stuff that kind of weaves into this is popular culture rather than just books, to be honest. So I know I'm going off on tangents here. So if I get a little bit too far, just stop me or I'll talk forever.
I would love to talk forever. I'm not stopping, especially hearing those influences, because I would also say that those Resident Evil games, which I have to watch other people play, I downloaded it, the second one, and uninstalled it, I think 5 times since the remaster came out. I text my brothers and I'm like, I'm starting it up, and in the same hour, I'm like, uninstalled it. I'm playing Skyrim. Like, I can't do it, but
Yeah.
the storytelling is great, and the Mass Effects, especially one and two, are two of the best games of all time, I think.
Yeah.
So hearing that is a very cool insight to it. Not everything has to be book related. So hearing those type of things is very cool. My brother checking in saying the last attempt was a good effort, because it was. I made it past level one, literally past level one, and that's a good effort.
Yeah, you got into the police station. You're doing okay.
Literally into the police station, and like the metal door slammed down, and I was like, nope, but bailed. But so I think that's very cool to hear.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I think made your series unique, which I think is really awesome. I wish I took a picture of it, but in book two, at the very beginning, again, I'm just sharing the cover coolness because it's great. Book two starts off with a QR code, for a song, is that exactly what you're sharing? Perfect.
That's
Because
it.
this is
Yeah.
one of the first times I've ever seen uh, something like that, where it's almost like, do this when you reach this page and you'll listen to the song that's written out.
Yeah. Right
What
there.
what went through your mind to put those pieces together and have that in there just as an addition to that level of immersion, you know?
Yeah. So I'll touch on my relationship with Gia here throughout the whole process because she is incredible. Um, Now, to answer the question first, I wanted to do something different. I had a story, and I wrote in a genre that basically was done 1,000 times over. And a lot of people talk about, well, we're in the post Tolkien era now. I don't think we're in the post Tolkien era. I think we're in the Tolkien era, and we're always going to be in the Tolkien era. And even if we're not, there will always be those people who appreciate that side of traditional, foundational, classic fantasy. So um, that was just one thing I wanted to do and to bring forward because, like you, I'd never seen it done. Outside of like I knew Cole Lansdell is publishing like an interactive short story. I haven't seen one of those since an old Goosebumps book I read like way back when. So I
Yeah.
think that's absolutely super cool. And I wanted something interactive and something immersive. So the way this all kind of started was if we tiptoe back to November of 2022 on another cold Edmonton Friday morning in
I feel like cold goes
November.
without saying.
Yeah, I'll
At
just
this
say Edmonton morning, and you could put two and two together for November. But anyway, I was looking for a copy of then The Edge of Night. So a lot of people know it as Pippin's song from Return of the King that he sings in Denethor's court, and you get the tomato juice going, and Faramir gets messed up and all that stuff. So a lot of people know it as that because that fit what I wanted to do with my trailer for book one that I made. It just seemed to fit Alira's journey, and I didn't want to use the song. I wanted to find a cover, and sure enough, like the one I really fell in love with was a cover by an Italian artist named Gia Wildwood. Now, I shot her an email. Basically, she sent me her version of the cover, and I said, yeah, like it's going to be in a trailer. So when I've got all this said and done, I'll send you an ebook as my thanks, and we'll go our separate ways. Well, anyway, one thing led to another, and I got into a certain scene in The Last Cry of Innocence when I was plotting it. And I had said, okay, like I want a song in a bar and a songstress, and the songstress is not who she seems, and it's somebody ethereal, and I kind of wanted to have that punch behind it. Now, what I originally wanted was I wanted to, and I approached Gia about using her songs side by side. Another fantastic angelic song. Because I wanted it to speak to Alira about her brother, and kind of for her to realize that maybe there's something more to this woman that like maybe she's trying to get my attention for some reason. But Gia, that song is very special to her, so she wanted to reserve that one, and she had actually said to me, she's like, "Well, what if I wrote you one?"
Hmm.
And I said, like, I would 1000% be honored. And I would not say no. So basically, it was just more of a here's roughly a prompt of the scene because I didn't want to read it or I didn't want to read her into who this character was or what they were doing or what was going on because she's invested in the series too after book one. So I was like, yeah, I don't want to wreck it for you. So here's the Cole's notes. Here's the gray area that I'm going to stick to, and basically go. You've got creative freedom. Go nuts. The only thing I think I told her was like, try to make it sound like something that would be sang in a medieval tavern. So stick to like your instrumentals and stuff like that. But I said outside of that, like I'm not going to tell you how to suck an egg. Like you are the artist. And anyway, so she came back with what became One Step Away from Dawn, and that is probably my favorite song I've ever heard in my life, especially just because she wrote it specifically for this book. And everything she did means the world, and it's incredibly impressive once you listen to it on Spotify as you come across it in the book, and you realize that everything, the lyrics, the singing, every instrument, the mixing, the mastering is all her, a one
Mhm.
woman show. She's
That's
got
great.
there's no help, there's no assistance. It's literally just Gia. And we had such a great time that she returned for book three. So you find the same thing in there. She returns with what I always call them as the novel's official theme. So in The Serpent and the Shattered Sword, we go to the plight of the shattered soul, which has a little bit more of a fireside, folksy feel to it, but it's a lament at the same time. And that ultimately questions part of why I did the series to begin with, which is good is not always good, evil is not always evil. I'm not going to use the term morally gray. I hate that term more than anything because it's a fancy, made up, dressed up word for being human.
Mm.
So I didn't want to get into that, but the she's also going to be returning with an overarching theme for book four. It's another original song of hers, and it's not going to be in the book, but she is going to do the very last song for book five. And I can say it without spoiling anything. It's going to end the last chapter of the book because it's a character reflecting on certain feelings throughout before the what will be the trail out epilogue. And that's I she's been a part of it ultimately right from the beginning, right from just after I had the first draft written until the end. Now, we used to speak in Instagram only, and that slowed things down. So we got onto WhatsApp, and her and I talk all the time. She's a big fan of the series, and anybody who follows my Instagram, you'll see me promote Gia's songs and Gia's work, especially when she's got something new, because she's one of the greatest voices I've ever heard, and just I can't get enough of her music. Um, Now, mind you, she's taken a little bit of a backseat recently to my chokehold that K-pop Demon Hunters has had on my Spotify, and I say that absolutely shamelessly. Yeah, there's Tom. I figured he'd pop in. But yeah, K-pop Demon Hunters has had an absolute chokehold on my Spotify account over the last 3 weeks. And I'm trying to, it's something I do on my way to work. I'm trying to learn every song of the soundtrack. And when I showed my wife it last week, we sat there, and when I was singing How It's Done right at the start, she's like, "How do you know this?" I'm like,
Don't
"Well,
worry about it.
that's what happens when you listen to it 100 times there, hon. Like it is what it is, right? I can't, yeah, it's infectious. That's exactly the way to put it." And I saw that we just infected Dave Lawson yesterday. So he's now on, Team Huntrix for sure.
I haven't
But
listened to any of it yet, so I'm going to try and keep my algorithm to just
love
angry rap and jam bands.
it. I wouldn't be surprised if we peel back the layers and that's Zeeb's playlist, not Sleep Token or anything. It's just Huntrix and the Saja boys.
I'll get in there at some point, I'm sure. It's too popular to not. Sticking with book
Yeah.
two, I want to slide back because Tim had a great question a
Mhm.
little further up in the chat, which I wanted to make sure to ask. But was Tiora always a planned character? Her dynamic with Alira was my favorite aspect of book two.
She is far and away the standout of that book. She punches above her weight class for sure as a character. I think, and I forget who. Pardon me, 1 second. um, I forget who told me, um, but I think it might have actually been Tim in his review. And Tim had basically said that she was like the missing link for what was happening in this team, and I knew that from the beginning as well. I had certain attitudes I wanted my characters to portray, And even in book one, Rinley came in late. She didn't come in until chapter 14, even though she played a decently big role, but she comes into her own in book two. And more or less, like, Tiora was a planned character right from when I set out, into trying to plan book two. And I had always wanted kind of like a seafarer, somebody that's tied to the ocean. Now I think I needed to inject a little bit of crass and a little bit of sass, and that's what Tiora does. And I brought it up under the guise, and this is where the mental health rep comes back in. I wanted to bring it up under the guise of masking, because as Alira finds out from her, ultimately her father, her confidant, her second in command, Keola, um, finds out that who she shows you is not who she really is. Now, Tiora has a very tragic past, a very tragic story, so that masking element comes out way more than I ever expected it to. But she could arguably be my second favorite character, only for what she does and who she is. And now Alira and Tiora's dynamic in book two was incredible. Like Tim said, I love the two of them. Even more than that, it was the dynamic between Tiora and Rinley. Because as Tiora attacks Alira, physically at first and then verbally through the rest of the story, then you've got Rinley rushing to her defense. And then you've got the crass Tiora with the duty bound, heart of a puppy Rinley. And it's just their dynamic is something I fell in love with. And to be honest, it's probably book three is my favorite of the series, hands down, just for what it is and what it brings. But book two is probably one of the more, like, it's probably the most special, in terms of, as an author, like, that's when I started hitting my stride in my writing. I don't shy away. Book one, I tiptoed. I didn't know what I was doing. I did my best to tell a really good story. It's a slow burn. It's not action packed all the time. It's a lot more militarism and political posturing than it is fighting and fast paced action and things like that. But for those people that know me, as a person, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't rush into anything. Everything's slow and methodical. And I much prefer stories where I can get immersed and I'm not thrown into the deep end of the pool, really. So that's why that kind of became that. And then now, as I got more confident, then I felt the ability to come in on a bit of a higher note, which the second book certainly does, and then the third even more so. So as I go and as I develop, all of these things that come in about pacing, and speed and brevity, all start to develop and work better. But I didn't, right from the first one, like, I didn't want to trunk my first novel. I wanted it to be out there, and I tell people, like, when I sell it to them, I said, listen, like, you'll be in for the slow burn. You'll see it. You'll dip your toes into the pool, so to say. Like, I'm not like a dad throwing in their 3-year-old with no water wings, like, sink or swim, buddy. Like, no, like, I'm gonna, like, I'll hold you there. I'll let you swim, and then once we get into book two and we develop, then we actually get into things opening up a bit more. And I kind of had that vision for Alira right from the beginning, because she's ultimately been kept. She's a bird in a cage. She's 25. She's never spread her wings, and she's never gone into the wider world.
Mm-hmm.
So the first book is more light magic, heavy militarism, but I don't get into heavy fantasy aspects, only because we're seeing it through Alira's eyes. She's getting out into the world for the first time, and as she goes into books 2 and 3 and 4 and on, that's when the magic and the fantasy aspects actually turn up a bigger dial. So I try to sell my first book as a military fantasy, because ultimately that's what it is. We don't really start getting into the epic side until book 2 and book 3 and onward, right? So it does get more fantastic as it goes. It's just that I think it all just comes back to not knowing what I was doing in the training wheels right from the beginning. I think that's all it was, man. And then once we got into book two, we started creating more diverse and vivid characters, and that's when again I feel like I just really hit my stride. So, and then even more so with book three, like I had last I checked today, I had 6 arc reviews in so far, and every one of them was overwhelmingly positive. Like, so I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like, I'm doing it. I have the like the renewed confidence going into book 4 and book 5, like the backslide of the series. So, um, all I can tell people when they get through the Serpent and the Shattered Sword is buckle up. I had Marie again, one of my beta readers, tell me that book 3 put her through a lot of torment. And I told her, I said, okay, well, I better go rewrite 4 and 5 if you think that's torment. So just wait. 4 is kind of like I'll lean a little bit forward. So 4 is like a it's not a setup book; it's a continuation book, and it beats its own drum, as each one of the 5 do. Um, and it is only acts as a setup book in the sense that book 5 is ultimately a final campaign, a final march. It takes place over like 3 days, and it is just from chapter 6 until the end of the book. It is an all-out war. Humans and beasts and all these things come together, and it's just, oh my god, it's incredible. It's like the Pelennor Fields, but with the Nick spin on it.
Yeah,
So,
that's a perfect example of, I always feel weird at first, but where like I'll read someone's book and I'll give it like a 4-star because Goodreads is stupid and doesn't have halves or anything like that. I'm not even saying like, you see people's reviews and it's like I'm giving it a 4.23 and it's like, what's your problem? But like half stars should be there a little bit.
yeah.
But I gave book 1 a 4, and it's because exactly like you just said, where you personally feel like you're hitting your stride into book 2 and beyond. So it's always like a weird feeling because I really liked book 1 and I was like, this is going to be the start of something awesome, but there are things to do that I know he's going to do heading into the follow-ups of this. And you could see it in book 2. I like book 2 so much. Like I'm probably 80-85% done with it. I have to jump back in and finish it, which is sitting right here. But I really love especially the much more focused aspect of it. It is like, the book 1, it was very macro. You're looking at the whole world, all this type of stuff, and it's really like you just explained. It's her coming out of the cage and spreading her wings and really realizing all of these things going on and trying to grasp along with it. Whereas book 2, you're much more focused on her. The plot is, much more consistent. The pacing has what I like to. I love the pacing. I'm a big jam band guy, so I like the ebbs and the flows along the way, and it's much more of that as opposed to not all over the place, but it's very direct and focused. I think book 2 is a gigantic step up from book 1, which I liked. That's the crazy thing about it. So hearing that book 3 you think is even better than book 2, it's just funny that like it almost validated in my head why you have to like give a little bit of leeway as like a person giving feedback to the author. You can't do like just read it and be like flawless, no notes, because then when the next book comes out, like if I think book 2 is better than 1 and I gave 1 a perfect star like rating, how am I going to praise you worthily enough to reflect book 2 and 3 and beyond? It's just funny to hear you say that. So I definitely agree with it 100%. I think it's fantastic. So it's very good, and I love hearing that the arc reviews coming in from book 3 are even better or just as on pace as they are with book 2. But one thing I wanted to ask as well, especially with the way that you go about getting the arcs, and I was one of the arc readers, which I still am, but the indie community as a whole, I think that you especially, I've brought it up in Willa Wraith when like we were talking in the past, and I was like, Nick crushes social media, by the way. Like, you do the reels, you do so many good videos with shout outs, like you were just talking with Gia, you do all these type of things. Um, was that something that you were nervous getting into in the indie scene? You know, a lot of people are getting into this to write the stories that they want to write and, you know, express that, you know, whether it's like you mentioned, the military history, those 2.5 years, like getting that out in story form, like, you know, kind of all of these things that are so deeply personal. And then on one aspect, it's like, now go sell it. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I never really thought that I would have to do that, but you do it very well. Is that something that, you know, you kind of had a little bit trouble starting off with, or did it kind of come natural to you?
Yeah, so it definitely like it wasn't innate, that's for sure. Um, I was never, even for my own personal stuff, I've never been a social media person. I'm not a big sharer, and I think that's only because like I don't have a lot to share. And that ties into like, Nick, why do you write so quickly? Because you're about to churn out a 5 book series in 2.5 years. And that's because that's the only thing I do. That's what I do. I'm not out, like I don't have kids. My wife is she works incredibly hard and she's in the middle of her master's, about to start her practicum. So I've got a lot of time, and with my introversion and my not liking to be out and about in the world, I escape into my fingers on a keyboard, and I write the words that my characters tell me to write. Now, when I was first coming into the indie scene, I didn't know what to do. I started on Twitter, and that was, I think, the first actual person I really bonded with on Twitter was Zeeb.
Hmm.
And it was over our shared love of Final Fantasy X, which is the greatest game of all time,
I was about to
bar
say,
none.
sorry to hear that.
No, Final Fantasy. I'll give him his flowers. Like that's what we talked about, Final Fantasy X, and that's kind of like where we hit it off. And then I had a lot of interactions initially too with Janelle Shiki.
Hmm.
And they were two great influences in just trying to get things going and trying to feel out the different parts of the community and try and understand who's who and who can help with what and who I should kind of be talking to and emulating, and just trying my best um, to follow, and just somebody who, or people who would set a good example. So as I started to go and develop, I tried to, the one big thing I didn't do before was trying to put the social in social media. So it was trying to feed the algorithm with not only my material, but comments and shares and likes and all of these things, just to try and interact with people. Now, the one thing that kind of and it'll be a little bit of a vulnerable moment here to show like how close I came to hanging it up before the last cry of innocence ever became a thing. Was the first review I ever got was like 3 stars. This was from my ARC team. It was 3 stars. It was kind of lackluster. It was like, okay, good, but not great. And then the second review I ever had come in, basically, I tried to find silver linings in it. I did, but it was my second review ever. It didn't even have a rating, and it was almost just like, this is garbage. Never write again. Now I could have quit then. I pat myself on the back many, many times. I even have it in my drawer back there is a photo of that review that whenever I'm having rough times, I pull it out, I give it a read, and I'm like, yeah, we're way past that now. We've come so far. And it's because we didn't let this hang us up. Wow, I just talk like Gollum there. I didn't realize that till now. Yeah, so that review is like the precious. I keep it back in my drawer. But no, I came so close to wanting to quit there, but I didn't, because the stories needed to be told, and I needed to be the one to tell them. And like, the reviews that followed for The Waking of Storm and Flame, there are people who loved it. There are people who thought it wasn't great. One reviewer hated that one reviewer hated that there was an aspect of my book about women in the military. I don't know how you missed that on the cover with the
Yeah,
armor and the sword. That's just me. But anyway,
especially even more sorry on the original cover. Like,
yeah, yeah. Like I don't take pot shots at reviewers, but that's one that always sticks out to me is like, why? What were you
yeah,
thinking? And to be honest with you, like I mean, I've served with so many great, incredible female soldiers and sailors that, like, for me to write a female character in the military, it's such an ode to their service that's incredible. And so if there's anybody out there that watches this that's a woman in the military, especially you, Audrey, I know you serve too, my little battle buddy for Instagram. Um, Thank you for your service and just keep doing what you're doing, keep smashing barriers because what you achieve inspires us all. And that's what I try to convey in the story, which kind of leads into another point that I had dispelled a bit ago by a fellow author I ran into, Jazz Pate. And Jazz had wrote me a beautiful review for The Waking of Storm and Flame, and basically said that they don't often, or they're often wary of female characters written by men.
mm,
And to have that basically cast off, and for them to see the amount of love and affection that went into the creation of Alira's character, and as they said, there she's the most loved on in the entire series. She is because she's me. I'm not writing a female character. I'm ultimately writing a vessel of myself, which is what Alira and Zara are. They're sisters, but Alira and Zara are two different parts of me. So Zara is the my military side, the duty, loyalty, integrity, courage. Alira is my introverted, people go away, I love my history side. And basically, Zara is I knew what I was signing up for and what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And Alira is what actually happened,
mm,
where I stumbled and I fell, and nobody was there to really pick me up. And I thought I was alone. But I did have a few friends that kind of dragged me along the way. Did lose a few friendships and people I cared about along the way, but c'est la vie. And it got to be super special. So no, I didn't come into the indie space knowing about marketing or my target audience or anything like that. I've learned a lot since. I've learned a lot from not only Willow Wraith Press, but watching people and what they do and trying to emulate things. And the only thing, like I've come to the conclusion, and it will be years down the road, after the Call to Silver Spire, the Judgment of the Last Light, even probably down after Black Bleeds the Raven, which is my next project in 2028, is that eventually I will come back and I will do a second edition of The Waking of Storm and Flame with everything that I've learned and revamp it for people who pick it up in the future, because it was a little bit of a tough rollout. I had, I think, around 86 people on my ARC team for The Waking of Storm and Flame when I initially did the Google form. And I think I only ended up with, at the end of the first week, like 6 reviews.
mm,
So I don't know, like, I've learned a lot since then. I tried to repeat the ARC process. I thought I was successful attracting that many people. But then I tried to repeat the same process with The Last Cry of Innocence. And I ended up with 126. I got more reviews, but I was still around that average 10% that everybody kind of speaks to. So now, or at least the industry standard for indie publishing, unless you're somebody like I don't know, Rachel Sandpiper, who is doing incredible things with art teams. It's incredible to watch her work. But with The Serpent and the Shattered Sword, I took a different approach, where I only invited people to the ARC team who had followed through in the
mm.
past. I did allow it for somebody else who's joined the ARC team, but still hasn't even reviewed the first or the second one. So That will filter out in book 4. But basically, my arc team now, going forward for 3, 4, and 5. Well, yeah, so 4 and 5 in the future will be invite only, more or less. I'm not worried about tons of reviews getting out there. I'm more worried about people who will follow through. And I don't mind, like, if there are people who join the series. Like, I've written 3 books, and if I do the arc team callouts in my newsletter for book 4, and they've read and reviewed up to book 3, or even read up to book 3 and just reviewed that one, well, welcome to the arc team, bucko. So that's kind of what I've got now, and it just always points back to find your people and know who they are. And I always try to incentivize things for my arc readers. So if you read it and review it and follow through with your arc, like, I'm more than willing to send you like an ebook. I always do for everybody that reads it and reviews it up to midnight the day before it releases. I always do an arc review giveaway where I send out a signed copy of the paperback that you arc read for me. And then, of course, with the option, if you want me to sign and send books 1 and 2 as well, more than welcome to do that. But I'm trying to get away from the random strangers on the internet bit, because it just doesn't work. At least it didn't for me. Like, I thought I cast a wide net, and I didn't know about the industry standard 10%. Like, I don't think it should be that way. Like, if I took an arc from somebody and I didn't follow through with it, like, I would have a hard time. Like, for me personally, like, I've accepted something for free and just didn't kind of follow through on my promise, right? So that's the way that I look at it. So, like I said, now it's everybody that's on the arc team is phenomenal, because some of them have been with me now for 3 books. I know there's one I just saw on Goodreads before I popped on here. I'll shout out Gemma Wells, because Gemma was my 3rd ever review from the arc team for book 1. And I invited her back for the 2nd one and the 3rd one as well, personally. So it's just one of those, like I said, you find your people and you hold on to them for dear life, because they're worth their weight in gold. They absolutely are. So, yeah.
It's cool. It's also been very fun to read the Goodreads reviews and see those people, like you said, where you find them and they get to, obviously write their review, but it's very cool to see their interpretations on you growing as a writer as well, where it's like, oh yeah, I thought this on book 1. Oh yeah, I thought, and then, like, when the book 2 review comes out, it's like, so not only did that change, but I was blown away by this portion as well. Yeah. So it's been very cool to see, even if it's a smaller number of reviews, like you said, not even reviews, people following through, because the amount of reviews are the same now that you have those people. So really, you just went up in a percentage of people reading the arcs to review rating, which is good in that aspect of things. But it's been very cool to watch those come in as well. One of my biggest questions that I always like to ask, because I am so not a person that I feel I could do this yet. But the way that you guys write as authors, when you are writing, and you mentioned it earlier, how you kind of brain dump, and especially right now with book 5, the words are just flowing, you've mentioned. When you write something, do you know instantly where it's one of those, this just hit, or do you realize it on, kind of a review of what you've been writing, or does it take someone in the arc team or the beta readers to go, oh my God, I highlight the line and send it back to you, or the paragraph, and be like crushed, like emotionally crushed? Because it's crazy to me, like, some of the stuff that you come up with.
Yeah, there's some, there's some stuff that you really think is going to land right off the bat. But then there's other stuff that, like, my first ever beta reader, Christina, who I worked with at the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, like, there's stuff she'd pick up on that I was like, oh, okay, I didn't expect that to slap, but all right, that's hitting. Okay, we're good. But then there's stuff that even like Marie and Audrey, who beta read for me for this one, there's stuff they pick up that hits that I'm like, okay, like this other part resonated with me, but that hit with you guys, so that's perfect. And even my God lover, my dear editor Joanna, Joanna edits like Audrey beta reads and has like the most creative comments on the margins ever. It's super cool. And it's just like Joanna will leave me comments as though she's a reader too. So like if a part absolutely hits, she will let me know. And she also lets me know, I asked her to if she could let me know emotional beats. So if you have a part like where you're angry or a part where you're sad, like just to put that in so I can have a look at it and be like, okay, yeah, I intended for that to come through here. So I'm glad that it's at least resonating. But really, like it's just one of those I'll have moments, like sometimes when I'm writing, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's clever as shit. I'm absolutely using that. But then there's a lot of times when I go into my editing process, when I look at it, I'm like, I wrote that. Like, holy Jesus, that's good, boy. And anyway, I'll go and like sometimes it even shapes up a little bit more and gets pretty impactful. There's a few things that I have, but I mean, I find a lot of it, not just in the way that the characters interact with one another or what they say or how they are. I find a lot of the things that really take me back are when my own personal feelings and opinions kind of bleed into a character's words. And it's just the way that I phrase it and frame it. And I think with a lot of my work, it tends to really get me going because of the way that I tell my stories. So I didn't shy away from writing things a bit old school, like old JRR. I wasn't worried to be a little bit, especially in the beginning. I had a lot of people that said, "Oh, it can be a little bit stiff," and I'm like, "Okay, well, like that's what I intended because that's the way Alira was and how she started. She was not an easygoing, happy-go-lucky character. She was about as flexible as a two by four. Um, so that's the way I wrote it, and that's the way I wanted to bring it through. And now it's at the point when I'm like, okay, like I knew that, I played it safe. I did things how I wanted to do it. But all I tell people now is listen, like book one is ultimately like the prologue to what is a 4-book series because of that 2-year time gap between one and two. But I ultimately tell them like, listen, if you find that one is not your taste, pick up two and start from there. I can send you the story until now. Once I finally get my act together, get my arson gear, I'm going to actually do, because I know Tim had mentioned it, is the story until now from book one. So I did that for book 3 with the first two, and I'll continue it on until the end of the series. But basically, if you want, once I get that in there, I mean, you can inject yourself right into the last cry of innocence because I'll have the beats in there for one, so you're not going to be missing anything other than the little nuancy things, but you'll be able to pick up and go. So ultimately, I mean, book one is book one, but it's ultimately the prologue for what is a 4-book adventure, more or less. So so that's what I tell people is listen, the Waking of Storm and Flame is a little bit of a slower burn. There were training wheels. Nick was learning how to write and be an author, and you know what? I don't shy away from it because it was a debut. And then, like you mentioned, it's the comments that come in for The Last Cry of Innocence, and then The Serpent and the Shattered Sword. The large majority of them all say the same thing. Like book one, loved book two, and the development in like pacing and prose and just overall confidence just bleeds through in that second edition. And that was again why it was important for me not to trunk book one, because I wanted, even just for myself, to see that development in my own writing, which has come through clear as a bell. So can't complain there, man.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that all of that feedback is making its way back to you and it's resonating because it's 100% true. So it's great to hear. But yeah, before signing off, I am just going to show the cover for book 3, which is releasing tomorrow, in
Mhm.
an hour and a half over at my time,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. Again, masterpiece of a cover.
Mhm.
These, I almost feel like whenever you do like that revision aspect of things, if you ever like get to it, I would almost have these prints as like an extra $5, like buying a book or something, because these
Mhm.
are like frameable. There's very few books covers, especially where it's one of those where I would like slap it on the wall, especially 5 of them.
Yeah.
And you're knocking it out of the park with these. But
Mhm.
so for book 3, which is coming out tomorrow, um I just wanted to say that, I've seen a lot of the reviews that are coming out right now, and they are extraordinarily positive.
Mhm.
Um, I think that, like I said, in like the way that we just spoke about it, that, the leaps and bounds from not ever written anything before to only being halfway through your debut series
Mhm.
is crazy. And I think you deserve a lot of praise for that. I think that you are just absolutely crushing it. And I don't know if I've run into a nicer person in the indie scene since I've been
Excellent.
here. Like I said, the way we started messaging at the very beginning was in emails, and now we talk daily.
Mhm.
And I feel like that is so beneficial, and it's almost why I started doing the streaming type thing, because I feel like people with you like you with your personalities and talent and everything like that deserve to kind of be showcased.
Mhm.
So I'm very happy that especially heading into the Thanksgiving holiday. I meant when I said this is a very big thankful moment, because you're one of the first people I've been talking to since I've picked up these books. I think you were my second arc ever, and I'm still very honored and proud to be along on this journey with you. And I would just wish you nothing but the best, man.
No, thanks, brother, and I appreciate you having me on. I kind of looked at it earlier, and I was like, you know what? I could, like you had mentioned, oh, it's like a special episode and all that stuff. It's right before well, American Thanksgiving to you, fine folks. We had ours last month. But to even bring me on for an episode with the goats number 23, can't complain, man. Yeah,
I was
yeah.
happy about that.
I'll compare myself to Jordan, no problem. I mean,
I'll bring
maybe
you back
not
for 45.
100%, man. And I mean, I'd love to even come back at the end of this series, man, and talk the whole thing. I think that'd be super cool. And then, yeah, like we said, I'll have all 5 art prints somewhere behind me
Mhm.
with a cool photo of me with all 5 of them. And that's kind of, I debated. I was like, do I want the painting or do I want a sword? I was
Mm.
like, no, I want the painting. I was like, the sword I'll do in the future. Like I followed Instagram or whatever, and I saw Ryan Cahill got a custom sword. I was like,
Yeah.
someday I will have Tempest on my wall,
Hmm.
Alira's sword. But I was like, I think that might be a few years and a few dollars into the future
Yeah,
before I do that.
exactly.
So I was like, yeah, maybe a painting will be better.
Yeah, you can always
So,
look around for a blacksmith for a little bit.
oh, 100%. And chances are here in Alberta, I'd probably find somebody because they're good with horseshoes. I can't imagine they'd be any different with a blade,
I would think so.
right? So, absolutely, man. But thanks for having me, brother. I hope everything goes well. Looking forward to getting the Serpent and the Shattered Sword out into the world tomorrow. Um, because if you've been through books 1 and 2, I know Tim's eagerly awaiting book 3. Um, you're in for a ride, and not to pat myself on the back too much, but the best is still to come, and you ain't seen nothing yet. So that's all I got,
Yeah.
brother.
How can you end on a better note than that? But
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you everyone in the chat. It was popping off tonight. I hope everyone has a great holiday weekend for anyone in America. I hope it gets a little warmer for you. Uh, you know, that'll be my Thanksgiving Day wish, for you to not have to break out that jacket yet. But thanks again for joining. Thanks everyone in the chat, and see everybody next time.
Peace out.